all the business people in this hall, whatever business we all do is adding to the figures of our economy. And even when we talk at such a place like this, many times we are giving our opinions, sometimes considered opinions, and therefore bear with us when we seem to lean on one side other than probably the expected. And I hope you know what I mean by the other speech I gave another time. I always think, and I hope you all can concur, that the state commendations that you always give as a country, Kenya, the bigger proportion of those medals and commendations, state medals, should actually go to entrepreneurs and business people. I am a politician, but I am also a businessman. And I can confirm to you, in terms of heavy lifting, an entrepreneur does more than a politician insofar as the economy is concerned. Yes, we set policy, but the people who actually do the heavy lifting is entrepreneurs who are in this hall today. Allow me to be a bit also macro, because to contextualize. And I'm on the topic that I was invited to talk. The Kenyan GDP, the gross domestic product of Kenya, may be around, could be around 18 trillion. How is it composed? And you'll be shocked probably at this. Our Kenyan GDP at 100%, a whopping 65% of our GDP is service industry. Around 17% is manufacturing, what is called secondary production. It is actually industry, manufacturing, and the associated logistics around that. 18% is primary production in overall. Primary production is agriculture and anything else that we produce in raw form, including mining. But out of the 65% of service, most of it is also public service, because education is part of the GDP, majorly funded by government, healthcare, and the rest. But there's pure manufacturing in our country. If you remove the logistics from the secondary production, manufacturing in Kenya only accounts for 7% of our GDP, only. And it has been declining from the 80s actually to the current level. But why is manufacturing important? Why can't we then grow why can't we grow the segment that there is ease in growing it? Why can't we just grow agriculture and primary production? Because it seems it's a low-lying fruit. I have never seen any economy that has grown out of primary production, out of agriculture, out of production of milk, out of production of avocados, out of production of maize, or any other form of primary production. Not a single economy. All the economies of the world, from the US, it grew on the basis of manufacturing. Why is manufacturing important? When we talk about economic growth, that the economy is growing, when we talk about Kenya is lagging behind Singapore, lagging behind South Korea, what do we actually mean? We are 50 million Kenyans, almost the same population as South Korea, but we are bigger in terms of land size. Then one would pass that then we are more wealthy than South Korea, because our land is bigger and our people are equivalent. But what distinguishes a country like Kenya and those developed ones is something we call productivity per worker. Yes, we are 50 million Kenyans, and South Koreans are that number, almost close to that. What distinguishes whether Kenya is a growing country or already grown, developed or developing, is productivity per worker. Now, what manufacturing does is to enhance productivity per worker. And how? When you are farming, when you are doing primary production, there is something we call decreasing returns to capital. That every money you deploy, when you farm your first 1 acre of land, anytime you have land, you start cultivating where it is fertile. And therefore you use less inputs for more output. Then you go higher to the areas that are not as productive, where you may need to use fertilizer, where you may need to use irrigation. And therefore inputs continue to be more. And therefore returns continue to be decimated. The other side of manufacturing is that manufacturing is based on something we call increasing returns. My brother, when you are manufacturing paint, the more paint you are producing, the less the unit cost. And that is why all the countries of the world have grown out of manufacturing, not out of primary production, and also not out of things like pure mining in raw form or agriculture in raw form. Now, if you look at countries that I'm mentioning, the US was ahead of many. And then I want you to look at this to see the sequence, and I'll be very brief, I'm almost finishing. US went ahead, grew through manufacturing majorly and industrialization. Then Western Europe, there were countries through what we call, or you have heard called the Marshall Plan, which was actually developed by the US to help some 16 countries in Europe, was also about industrialization and manufacturing. And the economies that grew out of that, including the UK and the France, and by that time what was West Germany, grew out of manufacturing, of course through the impetus given by the Marshall Plan. If you look at the other developed countries, from the US coming to Europe, the other ones now comes to Japan. Japan also grew on manufacturing. Again, coming to South Korea, that took up from there. Again, the basis of the growth was manufacturing. From South Korea, of course, a country like China from 1976 and 1978. Again, led by that time by Deng Xiaoping, through manufacturing. Countries like Vietnam, which came pretty later, again, through manufacturing. And therefore, I am here just to say that we may try all the other models in terms of the growth of our economy, but there is nothing that gives the primacy of growth in terms of accelerated growth more than manufacturing, and especially at a country where we still have to do a lot in terms of alleviating unemployment and job creation. Let me talk to business people, my last 3 points, who we are all here. As we do our businesses, and what I'm giving is my considered opinion, I don't consider that my word is the absolute truth. It can always be challenged. So what I'm giving is my opinion out of reading and out of experience. As we do businesses here, we must definitely be dynamic. A person who is here building abodes for us in terms of homes and selling them, selling us even land on which to build our homes, must constantly think about also diverse, channeling their capital into other areas. Because businesses across time are dynamic. And the business that is not dynamic have a very short shelf life. And therefore, I'm calling upon all of us here to know that even as we do business, the businesses that will help our country are businesses that can be scaled. If you are doing a business that you cannot scale, increase in terms of size, increase in terms of output, then you must get something else on the side to do. If what you are selling cannot be, there is nothing you can do about it, other than if you are selling, I'm avoiding to go to some routes because I also want to maintain friends here. Whatever business you are in, pause. That size of whatever you sell cannot be scaled, that you have to go to the next one, then think about it. Yes, you may continue doing whatever you are doing, but also choose a business that can be scaled. Scaled means if you are producing these microphones, then choose a business that you can produce as many microphones as possible, because that is what is called scaling. There is something else here, and this is my main point tonight. I was reading Forbes online yesterday, I think today. There is a company called Klarna, which got listed in the New York Stock Exchange actually today or yesterday. And I want all of you business people to listen to this. Forget about all the other things I talked about. Let us now think about this one point. Klarna got listed. It is a company that is dealing with payment settlements. It is an IT-based, it's a fintech. Out of that listing, the market capitalization or the worth of that company, we are talking about today, yesterday, today, depending on the time zone. Out of the shares going up of that company after listing, the market valuation of that company became 17 billion US dollars. But something interesting happened. Out of the listing of Klarna, 40 of the employees of Klarna, 40, became millionaires today. Workers, staff. I'm not talking about investors. I'm talking about staffers of Klarna. There is a company called Ndindi, which is producing chips for AI. It has over 36,000 workers. 36,000 workers. Now listen here. Around half of Ndindi employees, half of them are millionaires. I'm talking about dollar millionaires, with an average net worth of $25 million. $25 million at our exchange rate is around 3 billion Kenya shillings. Net worth. Staff, over half of the 36,000 Ndindi workers. The company called Microsoft had its 30th employee called Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer was the number 30 in terms of the employee list of Microsoft. Steve Ballmer today, at a net worth of over 150 billion US dollars, is now richer than the founder of Microsoft, called Bill Gates, at 109 billion US dollars. Underline that in my 3 statements or examples, I could give many, but on that 3, from Klarna that got listed just today, to Ndindi, which now has a market cap of over 4.2 trillion US dollars, it has the highest market cap in the entire world. To Microsoft, which is also among the top 3 in terms of market cap in the world, underline one thing, that staff are millionaires, staff are billionaires. That is something we have to learn in this hall, that there is something called intrapreneurship. Intrapreneurship. That yes, you have that company producing paint, but you have to understand that some of the people working for you could actually be smarter than you. And if you don't recognize that, what we do in Kenya is we leave and start our own manufacturing, paint manufacturing company. If you are doing any kind of business, including hospitality, the expertise we have in this hall is you learn, branch out, go start your own, and exactly, you even pick the colors of your former employer. I'm talking to the employers in this hall. The biggest asset is the people. And if you have that company at 100%, you can always have stocks reserved for staff. And it doesn't mean whether you are listed or not, because I believe that the whole of the company would be worth more than the sum total of the parts out of the people who branch from you to start their own. And instead of letting that person, if you are doing manufacturing of, let's say, flour mill, unga, or you are doing manufacturing of fertilizer, or anything else, that person will leave, you are competing on the same market, and of course, probably, he was smarter than you as the founder. Why can't we cultivate an idea, or a tradition, or a culture, where we do not just pay our best employees in terms of money, but we actually open up our companies to be owned by our staff also, so that as we grow, they grow. As they come to work, they are not coming to work for you. They are not coming to work for you in the morning. They are actually coming to work for themselves. And there are examples to give there and to show. Out of that kind of culture is the reason why we are giving NVIDIA today as the topmost in terms of valuation in the world. Otherwise, it would not have been an example. And I don't think it is pure coincidence that a company that is valued most in the world in terms of market capitalization, that half of their staff are millionaires, worthy more than $25 million. It is not a coincidence. It shows that that works. Open up our companies. Let us open up our companies. Let us identify our best employees. Let us also continue and start off giving them stakes, because you'd rather have your stake decimated to 45%, worth more like Microsoft, instead of starting a small minute thing where you hold by yourself, you only pay your employees, they get ideas from you, they go start their own. Then you have so many small micro businesses in Kenya, and an economy like Kenya. As much as we need those small micro companies, we also need big companies to compete globally. Lastly, the reason why in Kenya, in Africa, in developing countries, we always want to be close to power, that a young man in Africa would rather join politics. Of course, we all know it's because of proximity to also resources. Because our economies run on patronage. That for you to get this, you have to know this. For you to proceed to this level, you have to know this kind of a person. It's not a very good thing. But that is not the point I want to drive home. The point I'm driving home is that the reason why we look for shortcuts in developing countries could probably be at what do we actually call wealth. What is wealth? When you're looking for money, what are we looking for? And I call upon all the entrepreneurs in this hall that the money we are making from tonight, it stops being possessions and it starts being capital. Once you start looking at the money you have as capital, you become innovative and greed subsides. And the money we make, all the people in this hall, business owners, you've already made enough money now to live off and to live well. But we have to go higher. And I want to give the example of Nigerian billionaires. There are people in this hall who do trading. There are people in this hall who do imports from China and elsewhere. There are people in this hall who come in between. I want to use diplomatic words. You take something here, whatever it is, to sell to this other person, you make your margin in between. I don't want to say about being a broker. That's not what I'm saying, because I want to be nice to everyone here. Nigerian billionaires, what do? After we do all those jobs of being an importer, actually what they have done, not what they do. Let me use Dangote. Dangote started off as an importer of sugar, proceeded to use the same profit he made out of sugar to start sugar mills in Nigeria. At some point he was importing fertilizer. The same profit he took or he made out of importing fertilizer, he was not satisfied with that alone, because that was majorly benefiting him. He went ahead to use that profit to start a manufacturing of fertilizer. Now we are talking about a man who has now built the biggest refinery in Africa and the fourth in the world, worth more than 20 billion in terms of the money sunk in to that project. That is the kind of mentality we must cultivate, that we do not become obsessed by only owning for owning's sake, that we just want to make money to own things. We must make our money also be the driver of the economy by also deploying our capital into areas that whereas they are making us more money, the monies are also helping our economy. Because when we create a virtuous cycle, when we do well as business people, and our capital helps our economy to do even better, then the whole sum of our businesses even do or they are catapulted to even perform even better. Thank you very much. May God bless you.